Halat Iblis, and welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speedy race cars. That, by the way, is Emirati Arabic for Satan's Castle.
Oh my God.
Sounds like an old arcade game.
So you've seen Ferrari World.
That's what the locals call it.
That is an idiomatic expression meaning the middle of nowhere, which is where Formula One has now left us without any more racing. I'm Drew Scanlon. Joining me, Danny O'Dwyer. How are you, Danny?
I'm all right. I was thinking about this. I'm moving house in a week, and I was thinking the end of an F1 season is kind of like that last dinner you have in a place you work or lived in for a while, where you're excited for the future, but it's like bittersweet. You're like, oh, we had some fun times here.
Did we? Rob Zachney?
We did. I think honestly, this season frequently bored the hell out of me, and yet by the end, I'm like, oh, there's no more F1 because the little tastes of really fun racing and races we get, they fire you up, and if there's more F1 racing coming, there could always be more good F1.
That's very true. Well, if you are new to this podcast, a very warm welcome to you. It's the last race of the season that we're talking about, but rest assured, we will be back next season with a preseason primer episode. But if you'd like to go back right now and listen to our preseason primer episode for this season and then binge all of our episodes up to real time, I'm not going to stop you. That preseason primer.
Yeah. Do you think someone's done that? Like, when Netflix, before they would put up the entire season, they'd do them week by week, and then people would wait. Do you think there's some people who just wait for the season to be over and just binge all the podcasts and races? Yeah. That's a good way to be.
Time was you could do that. I think now you get too spoiled.
Yeah, that's true.
True. I used to be able to I didn't need to watch races anywhere near when they aired because I wasn't going to get spoiled.
I could do it on MotoGP still. I usually watch that a couple months after the season's over. I catch up with the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, now you just open a news page, there's the results.
You can tell it's the end of the season because I'm breaking Drew's flow during the intro section.
Stop breaking my flow. The preseason primer episode assumes no prior F1 knowledge, Danny. And explains how the sport works and who everybody is. So if you'd like to go back and listen to that, it's episode 216. Also, this show would not be possible without our audience over at patreon.com/shiftf1, where every month we release an ad-free version of the podcast, along with bonus podcasts and videos exclusively for our patrons that cover racing documentaries and films, F1 video games, experiments with other racing series, and a lot of weird things. So if you would like to support the show and get access to all that fun stuff, which continues in the off-season, head over to patreon.com/shiftf1 and click the link in the show notes. Danny, people who are watching the video version of this podcast can see why you're laughing, and it's because you looked ahead.
Danny opened his grimoire of F1 tragedy and looked at the page and started laughing. Which makes me think, just what sort of nightmare fuel escapades occurred on this day in F1. I can't wait to the end of this episode.
Can't believe. I'm so sorry. I always do this. I check the date right when we're doing the intro, and I go to the page, and then curiosity got the best of me, and I started reading it. I won't read it now, obviously. For some reason, my eyes instantly went to the opening 4 words of the second paragraph, which are also killed that day.
Oh man.
and I looked shocked, and then looked up at Rob, and Rob was already laughing. So okay. So unfortunately, we got some grim news coming at the end of the podcast.
If you are a new listener, you've got that all season to look forward to. This month, Danny, what is going on in Patreon land?
In Patreon land, where we're all doing fine, hopefully. We're recording our Patreon exclusive review of the Keanu Reeves Brawn documentary, which I know myself and Rob were talking in the Discord. Is not to spoil it. I think that's a really good documentary series. I think we're going to have some fun chats about it. So if you're interested in watching that or listening to that, head over to our Patreon, of course. We'll be talking about all 4 episodes, I believe it is, of that documentary. That's available. It is actually available on ESPN Plus as well. You were right. I was flicking through ESPN Plus and it was on there too, but it's also on Hulu and whatever else. And a massive thanks to all of our incredible title sponsors, which may be read out in a different order today because I'm going straight to Patreon because I forgot to post them into our document. Thank you to all of these incredible people. F1 Gamer Dad, Tracy Family welcomes Nico, Mojo Nixon Gaming, Get Rich or Die Ryan, Aaron Kolitz. Oh, I think that's Cyphers Training. No. Damn, they go by a different name. Some of these I substitute. Damn it.
Danny.
Sorry, Aaron. Cyphers Training, Turf SCS, at Team Blackjack, Michael Maves, Gordy's Army, at Talking Autos, Olivia Evans, telemetrydeck.com, FTC, Drew Stewart, Bailey Foot, Abdullah Althani, Jason Chadwick, Abraham Getchell, The Space Above Us podcast, $, ooh, Bunny Fiend, Snigs, Alex Goucher, Max Voltar, Circuit Demon, Troy Stammer, Humberto Roca, William Rumpf, Irvine Clinical Research, Lachlan the Madden Man, and of course, Jason Kelly. Thank you all so much for your incredible patronage.
Indeed. Well, we have got quite a race to get to, you guys.
Do we?
We have a race to get to, you guys. And the race will start with who else at the front of the field but Max Verstappen. Behind him, Charles Leclerc. And in third place, Oscar Piastri.
Yeah.
And behind him, George Russell, bringing himself even with his teammate on 11 qualifying results apiece.
Important, too, that the Mercedes do well because the big fight here is between them and Ferrari for that delicious second place position in the Constructors' Championships.
Indeed. Fifth place is Lando Norris. Sixth place, Yuki Tsunoda, qualified sixth. Yuki Tsunoda.
Again.
Alpha Tauris. Fernando Alonso, 7th place. Nico Hulkenberg, 8th place. Sergio Perez, 9th. Pierre Gasly, 10th. Lewis Hamilton, 11th. A surprising Q2 elimination. Then we've got Esteban Ocon, Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, Daniel Ricciardo in 15th, and then Carlos Sainz. He crashed in practice, so car may not have been 100%. But this is a big hit, like you said, Danny, to Ferrari since they are battling with Mercedes for that second place. And by the way, the Constructors' Championship is not only about bragging rights; it also has a severe prize money implication on the order of magnitude of millions of dollars,
especially with the cost cap.
Yes. Kevin Magnussen will line up 17th, followed by Valtteri Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, and Logan Sargent, who failed to set a time, really capping things off.
Yeah.
He failed to outqualify his teammate Alex Albon at any point during the season.
His laps kept getting deleted, and that's he could not do the clean lap.
Yeah.
Killer, yeah. And I feel like Oscar Piastri's sort of a late season surge as well has gone somewhat underreported. He's done really well. Like, obviously the McLarens have done well, but he himself, I think, has matured a lot this over the course of this season.
Yeah. Rookie of the year.
Yeah.
In my eyes. Let's start the race, Danny. The final race of the 2023 season as the sun goes down on Abu Dhabi.
Exactly. It was a nice little battle this between Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. They both got away well. Leclerc maybe slightly better, but the second phase is where Verstappen really shone and really hung it out there on the outside. I think this was a good example of Leclerc is he's not a Hamilton. Like, we talk about how Verstappen has broad elbows, and so does Hamilton, and they often hit each other's elbows as a result of it. It's like Senna trying to overtake Senna. Leclerc is a bit more, I don't know, tactical. He's not Prost, but he's a bit more, I'll leave you the space. You know what I mean? He's not shutting doors down like the two of them tend to do. And so I feel like someone else who's maybe a bit more aggressive or has nothing to lose, might have been a bit more elbows out. But with Ferrari and especially considering where Sainz is at the start of this race and they really need to get the points, I feel like Leclerc did a really good job racing Max, but didn't try and, I don't know, overdo it. And so what we got was a great little sort of multi-turn, even down to the wide before they hit the back straight. A bunch of battling with them, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I feel like... So I don't put too much by this exchange here because I think, one, you're right. Like, Leclerc has too much to lose here, given the situation with Mercedes. and where Carlos is, he's got to bring home as many points as possible in this one. But I think the bigger one is, did you see the way that Red Bull was able to take that corner and finally dust Leclerc? Like, there are so many moments in the season, but it's especially in corners like this, where you can just visibly see the Red Bull has more grip, and then it can begin pushing out of the corner so much earlier than the other driver can. Like, it is Max is on the loud pedal like a full second before Leclerc can get on his. And it's just, it's one of those things where I like there are times like last week, I think, maybe that was a situation where like Leclerc maybe did need to be more like, I'm ready to die for this position, or you, and not let Max just like take it so wide there in Vegas. But here it was a case of, this was wheel racing, and that Red Bull is just a categorically better machine. And at a certain point, there's nothing you can do except unless you're willing to run into the guy and just try to take him out. That car is just going to leave you behind.
Yeah, Leclerc does get a run on Verstappen on that back straight, and both sets of commentators, both the Croft Brundle and the Jakes Coulthard, believed that he had taken the place. But like you said, Rob, Verstappen is just too powerful and just muscles his way through it, like just to keep it. It's kind of amazing.
Sorry, crucial context for me in this race, because you mentioned both sets of commentators. You're forgetting about the third set of commentators, the F1 kids.
Oh, were they on this week?
You ever have, sometimes Google TV, YouTube TV will give you an alternate broadcast, and you're like, I want to watch this, and it's got the proper tags and everything. You're like, click. All right, Dhabi Grand Prix. Excellent. Click. And then it's like, well, they're back. It's the F1 kids, and here's Braden and Jackson, and it's a bunch of like little English kids.
Oh, nice.
Calling the race. There's one adult, and there's like 5 or 6 little kids, like between the ages of like, I think 10 and 14.
6 of them.
It's a lot. It's a big cast, and they're surprisingly good. This is the other thing. It isn't like, these as commentators, it is the funniest thing because it is clearly kids who have paid such close attention to F1 commentary and probably football commentary, and like they've internalized commentator styles and rhythms. Oh, wow. So it is like really polished commentators, and they are audibly children. The broadcast was not bad. The kids were not bad commentators. However, the thing that finally I was like, I got to fire up F1 TV. I got to get away from this broadcast, was because the entire broadcast uses cartoon graphics. And so the broadcast does not have proper timing and scoring on it. Oh, they don't have the gaps. They don't have all the info just arrayed on the left-hand side of the screen. So you're just watching the feed without the graphics in the most part, and hearing these kids talk over it. And F1 is really hard to follow unless you get that like gap information and like the sort of like the snapshot of where people are in the race. But I watched probably a third of this race.
Wow.
As it was being called by a group of preteens.
This has just reminded me that we only ever got one episode of The Grandstand with Will Arnett. Oh, they never did it again
because Ricardo had to get back in a car.
That's the only reason. That's the reason.
That's the only reason they were going to do so many of those because they're so good.
Yeah,
and they could have had Marshawn Lynch on
hired
for the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, let's just get beast mode in the co-commentary chair.
If someone can point me to the F1 Kids broadcast, I would love to see a clip of that.
Yeah, I think they're doing the Nickelodeon thing again this week on a Thursday Night Football or maybe Sunday. I don't know.
So the weird one, that broadcast is like the funny thing about the Nickelodeon broadcast is that does like it's pitch younger and like the kids are not as broadcast booth ready. Right. The F1 Kids is just the most bizarre fucking thing where it is like it is, I don't know, it's like big in reverse. If you had like adult like 40-year-old commentators get Freaky Friday'd into kids' bodies, and then it's like, go call this race.
That's amazing. I'm into it.
Well, back to the race with these young at heart podcasters. Perez on lap 3, having lost places to Gasly and Hamilton, gets one place back at the end of the straight as he dives down the inside of Hamilton at turn 6 for 9th place. Leclerc does manage to stick with Verstappen for a while Piastri drops back a bit and allows Norris to charge around him on the straight for 3rd on lap 4. Russell also lost a spot to Norris on the opening lap, but on lap 7 seeks to regain it and tries to get around Piastri as they head into the long left-hander of turn 9, but Piastri stays ahead. He tries again. Russell does on lap 11. See, I'm doing the commentator thing of when you say he does this, comma, Russell does, because it's unclear about who we're talking about. David Croft does this all the time. Russell tries again on lap 11, and Piastri locks up while defending, allowing Russell to stick close. Or if he doesn't say Russell does, he says the Brit does.
Oh, very good.
Just because you can't say the name too many times in a row. Allowing Russell to stick close through the corner and get a run on Piastri as they come across the start-finish straight. Russell sealing the deal into turn 1 for 4th place.
I don't know where I saw this, just while on the topic of Crofty. It might have been on YouTube. It might have been Sky Sports' YouTube. It might have been somewhere else. I'm not sure. But there was a great Crofty showing I think it was Abu Dhabi, the commentary booth. He did a little tour of their setup when they're commentating. And of course he did it. Like he was like, we're going to go live pretty soon. So I just want to tell you about it. And then slowly I'm watching the video and I'm like, the intro is playing behind him. And I'm like, oh, are they going live like right now? And of course, the pro that he is, he does the tour of the thing and then goes, but right now I got to call practice. And he just goes into it like and does the intro to, I think it was P2. It's pretty good.
Can you find that for me?
Yeah. It's like baller move. It's like, and you can see like the F1 intro with all the people starts and like Anthony Davis beside him stands up and he's going to do it as well. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so smooth. It's so smooth. I'll send it to you.
You love to see how good how tight the crew is sometimes.
Yeah.
By the way, I will also say in the F1 pre-race show, like Grand Prix Sunday or whatever it is, Ted Kravitz had a segment that was basically catnip. He assembled all the video from the night race in Vegas with the helmet cams where you could see like perfectly clearly the different readouts the teams are using on their steering wheels.
Oh, wow.
And did an annotated talk through of the different displays, the info on it. And then he went and interviewed the drivers and was like, so why does your team not show this? Or why does it like relay this information this way? It's a fascinating segment. I hope they break it out into a special YouTube segment because there were tons of interesting things. One of them I want to say was that they can't use the proper units of measurement in the cars. Like it's like we can't tell the drivers this.
Oh,
I think
funny.
It might be tire carcass temperature. You can get like surface readings. You can get that in centigrade, but you can't get like the carcass temps like directly. You can't just give the drivers that. And so I think what they might do is like all the teams give like an abstracted version.
They're like obfuscated.
Good. Yeah, like so Alfa Romeo uses color coding where if like the color, like in a racing game, like if it's blue, it's cold, if it's purple, it's ice cold, if it's green, it's good, etc. Other teams use like a number scale, 10 hot, like one cold, 10 hot. But it was really interesting because none of the team displays are really that similar to each other. Once you actually stop and analyze like how they all look, they don't look similar to each other at all. Some basically like don't display speed information, or they've like got it buried in a corner because I think Oscar Piastri was explaining this. You don't really need speed information in the car, like your reference points or what you're driving by. And
there's no limit. You have to stay under.
Right. So it was a really interesting segment. It was one of those things where it was like, wow. I learned a ton. And he finally asked, like, so Williams, what's up with not having the display on the steering wheel?
Yeah.
And Albon was like, I've wondered that myself. He's like, I'm told it's weight saving. but I don't think it's good. And next year we're going to be using the same sort of display that everyone else does.
Oh, right. Interesting.
So finally, James Vowell's taking care of business,
upgrading to the
getting
iPad
in there and being
15.
Put that display on the wheel.
Right.
Like,
wow,
here,
cool.
we're going to tape an iPhone to it if you don't fix this.
Well, pit stops start around lap 12 with Alonso and then Piastri coming in. Norris and Russell pit on the same lap, and Russell manages to jump Norris in the pit due to a slow McLaren pit stop. The other Mercedes of Hamilton not having a great opening stint. He tags the back of Gasly going into turn 6, damaging his own front wing, and then Hamilton pits soon thereafter. You know who doesn't pit, though? Yuki Tsunoda. AlphaTauri needs a 6th place finish to take 7th in the Constructors' Championship away from Williams. So they go with a bold one-stop strategy for Tsunoda, leaving him out there on his medium tires way longer than everyone else, causing him to lead the race for 4 laps or so. Only the second driver, Japanese driver ever to do so, the first being Takuma Sato. Apparently, he did not even know that he was leading.
Nice. It would have put him under too much pressure. I think also it was going to like possibly jeopardize like Max Verstappen having 1,000 laps this season or something.
Right.
Or some like obscure stat that it might get in the way of. But yeah, good job. Why not? Lead the pack, Yuki.
Yeah. Yuki does eventually come in for hards on lap 22. Perez, though, doing that thing he does, climbing through the field.
He does a lot of things.
Is that what he does?
You're going to have to be more specific.
He does the thing he does there, and then he does the other thing he does later.
That's right. Yeah. Lap 25 passes Alonso on the straight with DRS into 6th place, and then 3 laps later gets Piastri into turn 6, making it look easy for 5th place. Later, he'll make it look hard. Lap 37, kind of a weird one. Alonso comes out of the pits for the second time and rejoins on the track just ahead of Hamilton, then slows way down.
He tried the thing.
The corner.
He tried the thing. He tried the Jeddah thing, but he tried it here. He was like, I'm in the Middle East. I'm going to try the DRS thing. Which to Hamilton was like, did he brake check me?
Yeah. So after the race, Alonso said that he was slowing ahead of the DRS detection point to let Hamilton pass so that Alonso would get DRS instead on the following straight, which is a move he pulled off 10 years ago in Canada. And this quote from race fans, Alonso speaking, "We did the same thing in Canada, I think, in 2013. So for 10 years after that episode, we tried just to give the DRS to the other guy, braking for turn 5. But in both cases, I won. So it's okay. Lewis is obviously very clever, understands the sport really good, and has a lot of experience. But I have more."
So, I like that. So yeah, was it Verstappen and Hamilton who did it in Jeddah? Actually,
yes.
So that's funny. And then Canada might be the most advantageous place to do this because that is a bona fide hairpin. The detection point is right as you're pulling out of it, and then you have that monster straight down until you hit the Curve of Champions. I do that in the video game all the time. That's because that's a real easy one to pull off in the game. That's pretty cool.
Well, the clinic continues because on lap 46, Alonso is behind Sainz, gets DRS, then passes him into turn 5, which is the corner right before the straight. And then once ahead of Sainz on the straight, Alonso gets to activate his DRS, making up for the straight line speed deficit of the Aston Martin to the Ferrari, sealing the move for 8th place.
Love it.
Smart
Love to
guy,
see it.
that Alonso.
Hey, remember at the first couple of races when we thought they might have the best car or the second best car rather? Oh, what was their season?
I mean, I think it just goes
started
to show,
experimenting too much. Yeah.
They did. They had to reset it, didn't they? They went back to factory settings on that car 4 races ago.
Turn it off, wait 15 seconds. So as we come to the last 10 laps of the season, there is still a big battle happening between Mercedes and Ferrari for that second place in the Constructors' Championship. On lap 47, Verstappen is in first, followed by Leclerc in second, Russell in third, then Sainz in 9th, Hamilton in 10th. So at this point, with 10 laps to go, Ferrari would take second in the Constructors, But there is also the wild card of the ascendant, Sergio Perez, currently in 5th, lining up a pass on Lando Norris.
Well, I think the wilder card, the Joker, the river card that Ferrari was waiting for Sainz was we've put him on hard compounds twice now, and we need to do it for a different compound, and we're just going to hope there's a safety car.
Yes.
So Sainz is in the hunt, and like they were doing the live points thing where for a lot of that race, like Ferrari might do this, Ferrari might be able to overtake it, but Sainz needs to stop. And I think this is I would need to see the data. Like just historically, how often is there a safety car at Abu Dhabi?
40% chance.
Yeah, they're fairly,
like decent chance.
Yeah, 40%.
Which is, I would say, above the average.
Yeah. Still, I want maybe better.
Slightly.
As the race is going late, I might want to maybe like this is what's insidious about the strategy. Once you've committed to it, it's so hard to break out of it. And
100%.
You've now paid the price, and so now like
sunk cost fallacy just like drilled into your brain. You're just like...
Well, and also like I mean, look, they're probably right. Like fate likes to mock you. Probably if Sainz stops like with about like 10, 12 laps left to go for a different compound, probably we do get a safety car. I know that's magical thinking, but doesn't this feel kind of how like reality works, particularly when it comes to Ferrari tire strategy?
Yeah. Well, in any case, turn 6, Perez dives up the inside of Lando Norris, banging wheels with him, which causes Norris to cut the track and retain the place. Both claim that the other just banged into him, but the stewards come down on Perez, handing him a 5-second penalty.
Perez said he turned into me, which is presumably because Perez was driving as if there wasn't a turn, but there actually was a turn there. So Lando had to turn to make the turn. Whereas Perez, even if Lando wasn't there, Perez was not making that turn. The only way he made the turn.
Acid comment after the race that it was impressive that Perez managed to hit him, given that he was trying to let him through.
Really? Oh my God.
He was like, I wasn't even racing him.
That's amazing. Yeah, just a weird. I mean, Hamilton's contact with, was it Gasly, or Ocon, whoever he hit the back of. That was also like just an odd one. Just like, oh, did you just totally miss the braking?
But Gasly lost control of his car a little bit. Like Gasly had a lockup that was going.
Oh, had he?
So his entire corner entry was compromised. But unlike a normal lockup where you like just sort of skid off the racing line and out of the path of the car behind you, he made the corner, but he was just like under lock, and so he slowed up weirdly. And so like the Hamilton rear ending was like more defensible.
Right. Okay. I messed up. I didn't realize that had happened. In this case, then this is just like, it's a wonder they hit really hard, and Perez, like, it was almost like a Burnout Paradise overtake where you just use the other car to make the turn. Both I think their front wheels hit, and lucky there was no other damage. It was one of those crashes where, because they hit sort of flush sideways, they probably got away with it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
On the same lap, Hamilton gets around Sainz at turn 9 with a great outside pass. 1 lap later, Perez tries the same thing on Norris again and does get by without incident. Speaking of penalties, though, we get a lot of pop-ups from the FIA about pit stop infringements for multiple drivers, which was weird, but eventually we learned that they are for members of the pit crew, multiple pit crews, not wearing adequate eye protection. Never seen that one before.
No.
They all failed shop class.
That's what. But why was it coming up on the screen? Who would get the penalty in that case?
The team.
But the team, you can't penalize the. I mean,
well, you can, or they were calling it for drivers, but it's probably for during the pit stop of that driver. But no on-track penalties were applied. The commentators were saying that, or at least Croft and Brundle were surmising that would probably result in a team fine more than a sporting penalty. But the stewards dropped it afterwards, saying it was, in this from race fans, insufficiently clear whether those who had their visors open were wearing glasses or some other form of eye protection that would satisfy the regulations. So that's what that was all about. Back to the championship battle, though. Sainz has yet to pit, as Rob stated, so he's effectively out of the points, but Perez is lining up a pass on Russell and gets by on the inside of turn 9 and into third place. This would mean that Mercedes would lose second in the Constructors' Championship, but for Perez's 5-second penalty. So all Russell has to do is stay within that 5-second gap for 4 more laps. Enter Charles Leclerc, who, at that same detection point where Alonso and Hamilton were scrapping it out, Leclerc slows down to let Perez get DRS, then lets him through to try to get more than 5 seconds ahead of Russell. Leclerc, knowing that he would still be within 5 seconds of Perez, so he's not losing a place by doing that. But maybe he can secure second for Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. I thought this was cool.
Pretty badass. It added some last lap spice to Abu Dhabi, which is what we always love.
I guess I was kind of thinking, I don't know, it probably is gonna be hard to salvage no matter what with how little race was left to pull this off, but it did kind of feel like maybe trying to get him do the Sainz thing where he stays in DRS range and just like toes Perez for a couple laps might have had a better chance of opening up that delta rather than having him pass. But I don't know, like Sergio opened up a lead on Russell really fast after he passed him, but it like leveled off fast. So like, I'm not sure. It's one of those things I'd be curious, like, to run a few scenarios on it where it's like, was there any way with 4 laps, 3 laps left, whatever, for Ferrari to sort of manipulate that running order to seal that second place?
Well, meanwhile, Hamilton is trying to do his part. And I don't know that this was broadcast, but he makes a late lunge on Tsunoda at turn 9 on the last lap, trying to emulate the Sainz pass, but has to counter steer to maintain control of his car. And then Tsunoda repasses at the end of the corner. In the end, though, Verstappen wins the final race of the season. Perez finishes on track in second, but with that penalty applied, drops to fourth, 1.1 seconds behind George Russell, giving Mercedes second in the Constructors' Championship. Max Verstappen, as you said, Danny, did eclipse 1,000 laps led in a season. This is his 19th win in a season. Second place, Charles Leclerc. Third place, George Russell. And then we've got the fourth place of Sergio Perez, followed by Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso, Yuki Tsunoda in eighth. Sadly for AlphaTauri, this is not enough to secure seventh in the Constructors' Championship, but good news for Williams. It is Franz Tost's final race with the team. And Tsunoda said, and this quote from race fans, "Looking back, the start of the season, we never thought about it where we'd be leading the pack. I wasn't able to give the biggest gift to Franz, but I gave it all. So my performance was in appreciation of him. Even if I did the same exact strategy as the top teams, I don't know if we'd be able to finish P6 anyway, so I don't think we have regrets." Lewis Hamilton finished ninth, and Lance Stroll the last of the points-paying positions. Behind him, Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, Nico Hulkenberg in 15th, then Logan Sargent, Zhou Guanyu, Carlos Sainz, Valtteri Bottas, and Kevin Magnussen.
I was interested just to make sure what would happen if Sainz hadn't pitted. He would have been disqualified. So yeah, there you go. I was like, you get a time penalty for that, or do you? Nope. DQ.
The ultimate time penalty. You don't exist.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that is it for the race recap. We are going to take a break, and then we will be back with the news. And we're back. Rob, let's take this first one about McLaren.
Yeah, it's just a funny piece of news to see. McLaren have announced an extension with the power unit supply contract with Mercedes out through 2030. That's notable because that basically means they're committing to whatever power unit Mercedes puts out come 2026 when the new regulations roll out. Now, you know, for Mercedes' track record with the last power unit transition to the V6 turbo hybrids, you could argue that's why they racked up so many championships. Before the aero tweaks, tilted things back toward Red Bull's aero department when it was a power unit deterministic championship. Prior to that, Mercedes cleaned up, and so you can understand why McLaren would feel confident going into a generational switch like this. According to the press release speak that you find in announcements like this, they've been happy with how the partnership has gone. I put a little more stock in that, given the to use a Brundleism, the torrid history of power units over at McLaren prior to recommitting to Mercedes. But yeah, it's interesting seeing people try putting down these long-term contracts for customer engine agreements. This far ahead of the power unit transition.
Yeah, I wonder if there are out clauses, right, where if your engine explodes 10 times in the first 2 seasons, then we get to write this off. I
wonder if there's also a musical chairs thing. Every series talks about how these engines are so bespoke. It's not like you can just be make 10 more. We got a new set of orders. So maybe there is some value in just guaranteeing your supply as opposed to ever risking being in the position of being the last customer to show up looking for a power unit.
Yeah. Well, as we mentioned, AlphaTauri scored 8th place in the championship. They will no longer be known by that name. AlphaTauri, I was just getting used to it, but now I'm not going to have to say AlphaTauri every week because they are changing their name, which is something we've known for a little bit here. In addition to them losing their team principal, Franz Tost, they're getting a new one. Laurent Mekies from Ferrari is going to be their new team principal. Peter Bayer will be their CEO. And they are moving away from the AlphaTauri name, despite still being owned by Red Bull. And current documents obtained by racefans.net indicate that name will be Racing Bulls.
Boo. Boo. How do we keep Scuderia Toro Rosso?
It was such a good name.
Yeah.
Did you say Toro Rosso?
You said Rosso.
You said Rosso? You said Toro Rosso?
Yeah.
Toro Rosso. I missed Drew saying Toro Rosso.
Toro Rosso.
You can do a little vibro.
The point is, I think we can all agree it's the greatest name for an F1 team in history.
It's great.
I don't understand why you just don't go back to it. Also, let's face it, that team's its crops have withered since it stopped being Scuderia Toro Rosso.
It also the worst part about this is that it was a brand that they made up so that it could just sell clothes and shit.
AlphaTauri was.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know that they're getting rid of their fashion brand, but
oh god,
Toro Rosso was also a name they made up. It means Red Bull in Italian because the team is Italian.
It made sense.
If you're gonna go to something you made up, why not do that instead of Racing Bulls? Racing Bulls to me, what I think this is like a Racing Point situation, which is we don't have a name for the team. We do not have a sponsor yet. This is just the official name on documents. It's going to be something more real later.
It's just going to make me think of Jake LaMotta all the time. It's too close to Raging Bull. And it also implies that the Red Bulls aren't racing. I just
we're the Racing Bulls.
Yeah.
How about you guys are doing?
Well,
it's terrible.
And I don't know, you're right. This does have placeholder feel.
It does.
Maybe is because, somewhere in the background, they're this team has such proud Italian heritage. There used to be Scuderia Toro Rosso. What if we could be Andretti? Andretti Racing.
There we
go. What if we could unite the old country and the new world?
That's good. Amazing. I thought you were going to say Ferrari 2. Would you be allowed to do that? Just call yourself Ferrari 2 instead. It's better than this fucking Laura Mipsum dollar name they've gone with.
We are also losing the other Alpha team name next year as well. Alfa Romeo is returning as Sauber before they get taken over by Audi.
Man, it was weird that we had 2 Alphas. in there.
Yeah.
What's that wrong?
No Audi branding on it. They're very clear, but like that partnership's fine. Just Audi's not in a rush to get their name on it. So we're going to be Sauber for a year. A name that means success in F1.
Sauber kind of feels like a placeholder name as well, doesn't it?
Historically, it has sort of felt that way. It's just sort of lurched from one crisis to another.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, another name we're going to be seeing a lot is Vegas in the coming years. Rob, you pulled an article here from Autosport.
Yeah, just it was an interesting piece, sort of analyzing, why was the race in Vegas so good, despite expectations around the layout, and the Autosport piece analyzing it, talking to various drivers and people from Pirelli, is that the temperatures were so cold that the thing that Vegas took out of the equation is thermal degradation. The fact that F1 tires for a lot of teams and a lot of cars are really difficult to get in the proper temperature range for high grip operation. And if they can get there, they struggle mightily to stay there. This is arguably why we see Haas, kind of have the races fall apart now for 3 years running, because they've just never been able to design a car that can keep the Pirellis happy. And in Vegas, because the temperatures were so cold, everyone was kind of in the same boat, and everyone was on the hards that kind of came up to temperature, kind of stayed there, and weren't that sensitive to falling off if you pushed them. And so drivers after the race were talking about how nice it was to be in a race where you could just keep pushing. You didn't have to really measure out your opportunities to attack, knowing that your tires would begin to leave the acceptable temperature range very, very quickly. And so the argument the Autosport piece makes, and it's sort of an editorial, but it's also backed by like a lot of conversations with drivers and engineers. It almost feels like one of those editorials that's really kind of like highlighting something maybe the grid already agrees on, which is that for all the focus there's been on aerodynamic sensitivity and the difficulty of like cars following one another, the thing that's maybe been the most deterministic factor for how F1 races unfold and how cars perform has been this tire temperature issue. And, when we had a race that kind of removed that from the equation, everyone was kind of sitting up and being like, damn, that was an unusually fun competitive race. And so it kind of puts the ball back in Pirelli's court of, this is probably something that needs to be fixed, because the way things are working in other races where temperatures are warmer and tire temperature is more of an issue, is generating a lot of boring races where a lot of teams, they can't really push. Like their race day performance sucks, and it doesn't just suck, but it's boring, right? They just sort of fall out of the running order and disappear, and they're not relevant. And that comes down to tire temp.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Go ahead.
So yeah, it's very interesting just that this hasn't been something we've noticed in. I'm trying to think of like where else. I guess we had that race in Turkey. We've had a couple where it's been chilly, but like Silverstone sometimes can be a bit cold. I wonder if it's the specific type of cold you get in the desert, where it's just like it's not moisture. It's like dry, cool. Like it's not windy. It's just like dead cool. You know what I mean? Like I wonder.
No, I feel like when we think of like cold days, like Imola or Silverstone, usually it's a cold and wet day, and that's like different,
blustery or something. Yeah, it's like you don't get that same thing. So it has to be fixed in the tires, because these, there's a lot of Middle Eastern races these days. Even the ones they do in Abu Dhabi in November are still warm.
Yeah, I don't know why Pirelli fought so hard to become the official tire sponsor for F1, because this seems like the hardest job in Formula One.
It
making
does,
these tires and satisfying.
They seem to have
everyone.
hated it from the first. I remember when they came on, where immediately people were like, "These tires suck." I remember, I think it might have been Azzola even back then. He's been in the job forever, but I remember him saying like, "We've made the tires that F1 requested. If you want tires that like are more durable, that aren't as finicky about operating like conditions, we can do that. We prefer it. That's a better tire. We were told to make shitty tires for the show, and now y'all are yelling at us."
Yep.
And flash forward to this, they're like, "Please, let us get flogged some more.
Danny, let's go now to the silly season. We didn't really have much of a silly season this year, but the season is still silly in some ways.
Yeah, a little bit of weird. He said. I don't remember receiving that text message nonsense between Christian Horner and one Lewis Hamilton. So this all happened in a short period on the press day before the Abu Dhabi race, where the Daily Mail was, which is a rag, by the way, that nobody should buy, was interviewing our good friend Christian Horner about various things to get their nice headlines. And one of the questions was posited was whether or not they had ever approached Lewis Hamilton. Horner had a interesting quote where he said that, and I quote, "Most recently, earlier in the year, there was an inquiry about whether there would be any interest." When pressed on it, he said nothing happened after that. I think they had met, or maybe they were going to meet at some stage. They posited this to Hamilton almost immediately afterwards. And he sort of clarified it from his perspective, saying, "No, I didn't approach them. Christian messaged me. I've checked with everyone on my team and no one has spoken to them, but they have tried to reach out to us." He later goes on to sort of explain that and this sounds like somebody who got caught texting their ex or something. He found the message from Christian on an old phone that he doesn't use anymore, and then texted him from his new number, saying something along the lines of, it was early in the season, saying something along the lines of, "Oh,
new phone,
you know, more of a, hey, well done in the championship last year. I hope we get to, drive well against you this year." And Christian responded something similar, is what he said. He said, after that, Hamilton said, "There's a lot of people here that like to drop my name in many conversations because they know it's going to make waves. If you're a little bit lonely and aren't getting much attention, it's the perfect thing to do. Just mention my name." So, from his perspective, load of nonsense. Not quite sure what was going on there, but yeah. It was over.
But to your point,
quick.
Danny, do we like Hamilton's version of events? Do we feel great about the... Oh no, like I was at home and I found this old phone that I don't use anymore. But anyway, I turned on my old phone. I was like, whoa, Chris, what's this message from Christian? I'll text him from the new phone number.
I also don't, well, I don't like the, I find that more plausible than the world in which Christian Horner is like just outing private deal conversations. Like, it seems like the only reason he would mention this is to stir up shit. Like, what? Like, it just makes him look bad too. Like, if that was true, would you really tell the Daily Mail that like you were like talking to another driver about, like, I don't think any other driver in the paddock's going to think that's cool.
Yeah, especially like if this is the thing, like I don't really think there's probably much of anything behind this because everyone knows it's a farcical idea on its face that like Red Bull is not going to bring in someone like Lewis Hamilton to
cool,
like be
though?
alongside
Wouldn't it be
Max Verstappen.
cool?
This is never going to happen. Hamilton, like neither driver has anything to gain by it. It's an astronomically expensive deal that you could never like justify on the merits.
They wouldn't have to worry about their canteen allowance anymore, would they? Their charcuterie boards or whatever they broke the cost cap with last time. They have to pay for.
Well, I mean, I think they probably have to worry about it more because remember the three most expensive salaries are exempt. So now you have these two expensive drivers that you have to like feed.
That have to fire.
Their diets are very different.
Chef. They have to fire whoever it is, Gordon Ramsay or whoever it is doing their food.
Yeah. So no, but it's a very silly story, and like the shit starting from Horner is absurd. And if there was an outreach, it is very weird to like make a thing of it because it would. Because the thing is, if you're Red Bull, if someone like Lewis Hamilton did reach out, you'd at least want to take that meeting and not like make sure that nobody ever talks to you like that again. So it's a very strange thing. It's just the way Christian and Wolf like have loved to take the piss out of each other, but then we have with someone like Hamilton, it's kind of a weird vibe. At the same time, like Hamilton's story is kind of goofy too. It's just such a goofy scenario, and maybe that's just what happens when you get into the world of like all these guys have each other's phone numbers and can reach out. They just don't.
Yeah.
Or maybe they do. Maybe they just talk. Everyone's talking to each other all the time. And
I mean, remember that? What was it? Was it last year at Abu Dhabi? They had that big meal together, and they were like, "We should do more of this." I wonder if they ever did it again.
It was the big Seb send off meal. That's so. Those are the things. It's like when an old elder mobster is like having a birthday or something. That's what gets the families to come.
Well, speaking of weird vibes, Rob.
Well, I was thinking, if you like silly season, just wait until you get a load of the Gunther Steiner comedy series on CBS. CBS is apparently working on a single camera sitcom based on the character and adventures of Gunther Steiner and the Haas F1 team. However, this got a lot of like. Remember, I think I mentioned like at the start of the season that Kevin James did this, but for a NASCAR show.
Yeah,
it's a multi-cam
we watched the trailer.
Sitcom.
It's horrendous.
What was it called again?
Rough. I think it was called The Crew.
The Crew.
The Crew.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Obviously, no one saw it because every time they tried to look up info about it, they were just like bombarded with info about the Ubisoft racing game. Smash Hit. Like everyone just like, tell me more about The Crew, and nobody could ever find poor Kevin James. Anyway, CBS is trying to solve that problem by like, what if we made it, but it's about Gunther Steiner, and so this got some pickup like around the time of Vegas, but somebody asked Steiner about it. And he was like, I don't really know anything about it. He said, I'm just a producer. If there's something in the moment, I spoke with them months ago. That was done, but nothing at the moment. I think they tried to do something, but nothing is happening at the moment right now. Spoken like a man with a producer credit.
Oh my god. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, taking the meme too far. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have the legs. Don't do it. Don't push it.
I watched the first episode of that Geico Caveman show.
Oh my god. Did anyone ever approach you about being the blinking guy show? Just strange things happen, and you just go, ooh.
a couple requests to go on like game shows.
Oh, really? So that like who is this person? Like, do you recognize this person or something?
I did one of those on the radio. Yeah,
but that's not going to work.
Well,
that's why it's a good radio quiz.
Who is this visual gag you've seen before on the radio?
It was like a what was the Nickelodeon thing where you just ask questions.
Okay.
Anyway,
right.
Yeah,
I just don't understand why. Like, it's not a workplace comedy series. It's about two F1 team principals, rivals but like best friends, both get fired and end up cohabiting while they await their next gig. And it's about Gunther and Mattia.
Matteo, yes.
That's the show.
A vineyard in northern Italy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the fucking show.
Wait, are you saying that's what you would do or that's what they're actually doing?
No, that's what they should do. That's what I would do.
Okay.
I would have been like, okay, but what if Gunther got fired at the same time and these two guys like just decide, fuck it, we'll open a vineyard.
Yeah. Like they open like the best part of Drive to Survive season, whatever it was this year's. It's almost like it has vibes of like what happened after Red and Andy Dufresne met on that beach. You know what I mean? Like Shawshank's credits roll, but like it's like, you know, it's middle-aged besties just having a time together.
Well, speaking of having a time, these drivers had a time, and so did we. Let's run down the final standings of the 2023 season. Max Verstappen, of course, won a long time ago. He ends the season with 575 points. His teammate Sergio Perez comes home in second place with 285. Lewis Hamilton in third with 234. And then a tie on points But because of average finishing or best finishing positions, Fernando Alonso gets 4th, while Charles Leclerc gets 5th. Both have 206 points.
Amazing.
1 point behind Lando Norris in 6th. Amazing. Carlos Sainz in 7th with 200. George Russell in 8th with 175. Oscar Piastri in 9th with 97. Lance Stroll in 10th with 74. Behind them, Pierre Gasly had 62. Esteban Ocon with 58. Alex Albon finished the season with 27 points.
Nice.
Yuki Tsunoda with 17. Valtteri Bottas in 15th place with 10 points. Then we've got Nico Hulkenberg with 9. Daniel Ricciardo ahead of Zhou with 6. Kevin Magnussen in 19th with 3. Then Liam Lawson with 2. Logan Sargent with 1. And Nick DeVries with 0. The constructor standings, Red Bull Racing, of course, wins with 860 points. Mercedes comes home in 2nd with 409. Ferrari in 3rd with 406. McLaren seals 4th place with 302. Aston Martin in 5th with 280. Alpine's in 6th with 120. Williams has 28. AlphaTauri has 25. Alfa Romeo has 16. Gene Haas and team finished the season with 12. That's interesting. Alpine with 120, Williams with 28. I don't feel like the gap is that far, right? Like I feel like Alpine, Williams, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, they were all kind of all mixing it up together, but yeah, that's a stark gulf.
Yeah, especially considering they're all fighting for lower points. So it just shows you how much of a spread there actually was between the two of them. Plenty to talk about there. I know we're going to get to fantasy standings too, but just to mention to people that next week we are going to do a follow-up end of season podcast with emails as well, right?
Yes indeed. I feel like people want to write in I guess questions about the season as a whole, thoughts about the season as a whole. We're gonna just kind of take some emails, chat about the season, and cap things off next week. Shift+F1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. But yes, Danny, I wanted to get to the final fantasy standings.
It's the fantasy standings.
Not the ranking of Final Fantasy games. Right. It's a different podcast. At the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the podium looked like this. Val Torres in 3rd. In 2nd place is Alari. And 1st place at Abu Dhabi, Bullock, Babies, and Bottas.
Whoa. Those are intense names.
Yeah.
Congratulations, everyone, with your intense names.
Yes. But overall, the season has concluded with the following podium.
Here we go.
In 3rd, with 6,812 points, I has no idea.
Oh, wow. They got in there. Okay.
Mm-hmm. 2nd place with 6,859 points, paying the stroll toll.
Beautiful. I constant joy every week when I got to hear you read that out. Great.
Yeah. Well, before I read the first one, let's read the 10th to 1st. Ready?
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Rock Place.
Nice.
Blossom Team. Blue Shell Racing.
Oh yeah, remember them.
X the Goat Team X. Gamer tag over here. 360 no scope.
Yeah.
That's a tie between X the Goat Team X and Fine Line Racing.
Is that for 5th or 6th?
That's for 6th. In 5th place, we have 3 asterisks, the letter Q, and 3 asterisks. So,
whoa, okay.
Top secret clearance.
All you people who are in the know, you know what that means.
Yeah. Couldn't get first though. Guess the conspiracy doesn't go that deep. 4th place is Horner to the Max. Then we've got I has no idea, paying the stroll toll, and in 1st, 6,862 points. Time to call _ Gene. Gene, we won the fantasy season.
Congratulations. Great name. Great racing. Great fantasy.
We look like a bunch of winners.
Very good.
Yes, now on to some emails. Shift+F1podcast@gmail.com or fn.cool/emails. Rob, what do we have here?
Well, first, we have an email. The subject line is too enticing to pass up. Racing around the world in a front-wheel drive hatchback. Drew, take it away.
All right, Ben writes, listening to the Race Around the World segment, parentheses, raw.
Oh, yeah.
Raw is war.
Raw. I like it raw.
You mentioned the racing season winding down, and it reminded me of last weekend's Bathurst TCR race. This is the weekend of November 11th and 12th. The TCR touring car formula is based off everyday cars, your Civic Type Rs, your Elantra Ns, your Audi S3, etc. While my beloved WRC is still going, it's hard to speculate, but TCR is a much easier watch with multiple short races per weekend. And as we all know, slow cars make for better racing. They're at Macau with 2 to 4 races this weekend. That's last weekend, if you're listening to this when this comes out. And should be on YouTube at TCR TV, either live or after the fact. All right. We will put that in the show notes. I imagine that people will need a lot of racing to watch in the off season. So
that's true.
There's a lot out there just on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, look, they got all these. They got the highlights are right up there. My absolute favorite PlayStation 1 video game, at least driving game, was Toka Touring Car, the racing game, because those cars are just real fun to race. You get to use like Brands Hatch, and like there's just like some fantastic British tracks you get to drive around on them. I feel like TCR or like touring car stuff will be something I could get into pretty quick, just because it's a rubbing his racing kind. It's kind of like the overtake Perez tried on Lando. Not you could do that in touring cars a little bit,
and people would be like, "That was awesome."
Exactly, great job. 5 extra points for best smash overtake.
DJ Atomico was pleased.
I don't know what the like the Toka series, like when
so
that
it morphed into dirt, right?
No, the games did, but the actual, because Toka was.
I'm sorry.
Wasn't Toka the name of
turned into Grid? I want to say,
right. It was Codemasters, though, right? It was
it
was
they
had Toka and they had
career
Colin
mode
McRae.
Stuff. Yeah,
Colin McRae turned into dirt, and Toka turned into.
So is it just the British Touring Car Championship, or is it something? Oh, okay. So they're the organizer. So it sounds like they're the FIA to the British Touring Car Championships F1 or something like that. Maybe that's what it is. I should look that up. But yeah, touring cars are cool. I like them. They look. There's something classic about how they look, because they do look like regular road cars.
But they have like on the side.
Way more. Yeah, just like, but they're like covered in advertising like NASCAR, and also have like kind of usually have big bumpers and side pods on. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of a little bit beefier. Like they can take a hit.
I mean, the racing game that got me really back into racing sims was remember that Swedish company Simbin? They did like GTR, GTR2, GT Legends, but they also did this thing called like Race 07. It was about this like tier of racing where it was like Honda Civics and like, you know, the like. And those were a blast because, it's like you're on a lot of tracks that are maybe a little like not appropriate for F1 car. Like Zandvoort was in that game, and old Zandvoort in a touring car of this caliber was an amazing racetrack.
Oh man,
because it's very forgiving. Like the speeds aren't that high, so you can get away with a lot.
So on that banked curve, you're like 3 cars wide, probably.
Banked turn curve wasn't there, but what
you're
was
right.
there was a dune like ridge road that you raced along. That was like very old school. It was great, great stuff. It's a fun type of racing. America has a version like this too. They run in sport races like the Continental Sports Car Championship.
Cool.
Also, good times there. Worth watching. I think Robert Wickens, who was that IndyCar driver, was in that horrific accident some years back. He races in there and is quite competitive.
Race 07's on Steam.
Don't buy it. It is. I tried to get those games going a while back.
Really?
Could not perform the sound. They're in that like. They had like, what was that? Horrible Securum copy protection. Like they're in that like that really bad era late 2000s, early 2010s, where like for whatever reason these games are rarely backwards compatible. Like something about the Windows versions that existed then,
the boot
doesn't
menu was
port
done in
super well to modern
Flash
ones.
or something.
Yeah, it's just a mess. So like I tried to get them running again, couldn't be done. Jason Chadwick writes,
Jason.
guys, I realize this is totally irrelevant to you all. I wouldn't be too sure, Jason. I just need to say my mom was very impressed with your podcast this week. She is not into F1, but had a massive smile on her face after Donny Osmond was described as having the voice of an angel. Growing up, us kids were made to watch him starring in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat whenever we were sick. So the family here has little love for him. So I now have to endure her smugness as she feels vindicated. I guess my eyes skipped over that part where you like, that was your, like, you had to watch that on your sick days?
That's like Munchausen's by proxy. That's
like torture.
That's man. Was your mom trying to kill you? Is that...
I will say, I was like curious because like I didn't know he was in that. I listened to that cast album while I was taking show notes, and I was like, "This ain't bad."
I gotta check that out too because I like Joseph a lot. So maybe I have heard Donny Osmond and Joseph as well. I don't know.
You might have. It's a bop. I'm not gonna lie,
man. Donny Osmond. So I think I'm coming around on Donny Osmond. I had a bit of an issue with Donny Osmond for years. When I first moved here to America 10 years ago, no fault of his. But whenever I would say my name is Danny, like in my way I say it with my Irish accent, Danny, Americans think I'm saying Donny. So like my first landlord for like 3 years, and like this is a guy who like I signed checks every month that had Daniel written on them. He would call me Donny for years. So whenever if I'm ordering Starbucks, I have to say like Danny. I have to like really American the A, like Danny.
I was actually trying to figure out like I was like, the fuck do you mean people couldn't understand your name was Danny? You like, and I say it in Irish, and it's like Danny. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? But now hearing how you think Americans say Danny. Danny.
As opposed to Danny. Like it sounds a little bit like if you're expecting to hear Danny and you hear Danny, it sounds a little bit like Donny.
Yeah. Let's try and see that.
So hey, but you know, I'm good with him now. Now that I just go around speaking like this all the time, it's totally fine. Voice of an angel, Donny Osmond. Yeah, great guy. Tell her to become a patron. We've got Donny Osmond episodes every week. Not true.
Shift+F1 podcast at gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. You can also hit us up on the socials, which are linked in the show notes. That is us around the internet, Danny. Do you want to take us around the world one last time?
I have to do this after talking about the beautiful angel-voiced Donny Osmond? Oh my God. Race around the world. Yeah.
There's just one on my calendar here. It is Extreme E. The Copper X Pre is happening. Don't laugh at Extreme E.
Sorry.
They are in Antofagasta, Chile for the Copper X Pre.
Copper. Is that because the ground looks like it's copper? Are there copper mines up there?
I think so. Yes.
Are they theming every Extreme E race around a different part of the
Danny,
battery?
The purpose of... That's pretty good. The purpose of Extreme E is to use electric motorsport to raise awareness of climate change and highlight the advantages of low carbon vehicles.
Yeah, they could have just driven bicycles. That would have done the job.
Yeah, here's the problem. Problem if you really like racing and you're also very concerned about climate change and the environment is the number of outlets for that are really limited. Like a bicycle race just ain't gonna cut it. Do I want to save the earth? Yes. Do I also want to use the earth as a playground for sick vehicular mayhem? Also, yes.
Well, you can watch Extreme E somehow. And that's all we got. Danny, listen, it's the end of the season.
We got TCR. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I skip this one? I don't know.
No. I've been waiting for it.
Okay.
Fox Sports 1, by the way, in the United States.
Strap in, folks. November 29th. Advancements in safety mean serious injuries to F1 drivers are now mercifully rare, unlike this book. But until people like Jackie Stewart started to push forward for safety agenda, The safety agenda. Fatalities among racing drivers at Grand Prix were not uncommon. It is ironic that Graham Hill survived an 18-season career in F1, only to be killed just months after he retired in a plane crash on this day in 1975. A double world champion and the only man to have won the famed Triple Crown of the Indianapolis 500, the Le Mans 24 Hours, and the F1 World Championship. Hill was flying his own Piper Aztec aircraft when he crashed at Arkley Golf Course in Hertfordshire, instantly killing him. He was 46. Also killed that day were key members of the new Embassy Hill racing team set up by Graham in 1973. Team managers Ray Brimble, designer Andy Smallman, and mechanics Terry Richards and Tony Alcock all perished, as did Hill's protege, promising young British driver Tony Brees. So there you go. There you go. Didn't I say I'd read out Christmas Day on the last one?
Did you?
I did.
Maybe
I
you
did.
could do
I
that
did.
next episode.
I have it dog-eared.
Oh, wow.
Can I? Okay.
Do you want to do this one or the next
On
one?
this day,
I need a palate cleanser.
1978, Blitzen was tragically mangled in a crash.
We're going to do it. We're doing Christmas. I need it. I need it today.
Right.
I need it. Okay. Dennis Jenkinson was the most famous Formula One journalist in the world. After a spirited but underfunded racing career, he turned to reporting when he became the Grand Prix correspondent for Motorsport magazine in 1953. Writing under the name DSJ. He continued to act as a co-driver, and in 1955 he won the Mille Miglia road race in Italy with Sterling Moss in a Mercedes. That was the end of the sentence. Not sure how I went up like that at the end. Jenks used a series of notes about the track and obstacles, a revolutionary innovation at the time, which is now standard for any rally driver.
Wait, what would the co-driver do before that?
Just hang out. It's like,
Hey, as your turn.
I think there's a... Yeah, go. Keep going. Pedal to the metal.
Well, wait.
Yeah, he's just...
We remember, we watched the Fangio doc. Your co-driver was less a co-driver, I think, and then like a mechanic who rolled with you. And would just like fix the various shit that would happen. And also, yes, like go hurdling off cliffs with you. If you
wasn't like
wrong.
left over crest over such and such.
What's
that meme
funny.
one of the guy who's like screaming? Samir, please. It's good stuff. Motor racing lore has it that Jenks took to the public roads in Hampshire on Christmas Day 1958 in an unregistered, unlicensed, and unroad legal Lotus Formula 2 car. He reasoned the roads would be quieter and police scarce on the festive holiday. I was worried it was going to take a turn there, but it didn't.
He's just having fun.
Just having fun. Wilson Fittipaldi, which, if I can pause for a second, is quite the name. It's like two worlds colliding right there.
Yeah, it's also like there are Baldwins out there you've never heard of.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, we don't talk about Wilson. What we do today. Wilson Fittipaldi, born on Christmas Day in 1943, the elder brother of double F1 champion Emerson. Wilson never hit the heights of his brother, scoring just 3 points in 35 race starts.
Well,
but hey, he got mentioned in this book.
Sure.
Good job, Wilson.
All right.
There you
go. Well, Danny, final thoughts. Final race of the season.
Yeah, I think Rob was talking before about how I kind of need I need a week at least to sort of digest and look back over it. I feel like in a 19 race season, I have such a short memory. Like I have to go back and watch like the opening 5 races again and kind of like remember what it felt like back then and how it was. Yeah, it's been a season that's been interesting. It's been, some of the races have been boring, but then some of my favorite F1 seasons had boring races in them, and we've been recently spoiled with pretty good seasons, so maybe it's not that big a deal. Verstappen had a great drive. Like he I don't think he retired a race this year, right? He finished every single race as well. Like
ran every lap.
Every lap.
Which granted, he's in a fantastic car, but he still was able to completely blitz his teammate. There's lots to talk about in the next week when we get together. Please send an email if you have any thoughts or comments or questions. I'm always it's always a little bit sad. Not the least because it means that we don't get to chat every single week, lads. We'll do our Patreon exclusive pods for the next 2 months. But yeah, it won't be the same, man. Won't be the same.
Final thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, I'm also like, it's always bittersweet to hit this time of year. Do need time to reflect on the season. If only remember that, Danny, I think there were more than 19 races, my friend. I think there's been more than 19 races for a minute. I think.
Oh yeah.
I think they've got the 24 race calendar. I think this year is what, 22, 23, because China gets canceled like always, but next year it won't be. But it's a lot of races. And it will not be that long before we are like looking forward to testing at Abu Dhabi. Not Abu Dhabi. Bahrain. I really miss though when they would do the big test at Jerez. Because that was always kind of a fun one. Like doing it, maybe it's more cost effective, but doing it at Bahrain, just doing it at a venue you're going to see again next week for the Grand Prix. It's just like there's no juice to testing now. It's just like it's like a extended free practice. Send them to Jerez, like a classic. Like this is where F1 does testing, and it's not super translatable to an F1 track. That's what I want. But either way, we'll be doing testing analysis before we know it.
Yeah.
Well, until then, or until next week, send us some emails, shift.f1podcast@gmail.com or fn.cool/emails, and we will read some of those on our end of year capper. But yeah, if you'd like to support the show and get access to all of our bonus episodes, the ad-free version of the podcast, and the official Shift F1 Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/shiftf1. Have a good race weekend, everyone. We will see you all next week.
Meow.